Look at Chicago, a city of steel and glass, reaching for the sky. It's a city defined by legendary names like Burnham, Field, and Palmer. Their stories are carved into the stone of the loop, their statues watching over a city they helped create. We all know those famous names. That's the official history. But today's metropolis was built on the bones of a muddy frontier town, a blank canvas of ash and ambition left by the Great Fire of 1871. And while the famous names got most of the credit, much of the city's real architectural and economic DNA was written by a small, influential group of families operating just out of the spotlight. They were immigrants and the sons of immigrants, driven by a different kind of ambition. While others sought fame, these families sought to build. They didn't just want a piece of the city, they wanted to construct its very foundations. This is the hidden history of the dynasties that helped build Chicago's financial, cultural, and architectural backbone. This is the story of how a handful of Jewish families, richer than kings and often twice as shrewd, helped turn a swamp into a global powerhouse. Chapter 1. The retail revolutionaries before Chicago was a city of skyscrapers. It was a city of shops, a frantic, chaotic hub of commerce where fortunes were made and lost on slick, muddy streets. In the mid-19th century, a wave of German Jewish immigrants arrived, not with grand fortunes, but with a relentless drive and an eye for what the city was about to become. They started as many did, as peddlers with packs on their backs and a few words of English, hawking goods to the scattered residents of a burgeoning town. But a few of them wouldn't stay peddlers for long. They would soon revolutionize the very way America shopped, and in doing so, lay the commercial bedrock of Chicago. One of the first was a man named Joseph Spiegel. Arriving from Germany, he was the son of a rabbi, and after serving in the Civil War, he settled in Chicago in 1865. He opened a small home furnishing store on Wabash Avenue. It was a humble start. Then, in 1871, the Great Chicago Fire wiped him out. For many, this would have been the end. For Spiegel, it was a beginning. He rebuilt, but with a radical new idea taking shape in his mind. An idea born from the vast, open spaces of the American Midwest. His masterstroke was the Spiegel catalog. While competitors like Marshall Field were building opulent downtown palaces for the city's elite, Spiegel looked outward. He saw millions of farmers, miners, and small-town families scattered across the country, far from any major city. In 1905, his company launched its mail order business, becoming one of the very first to offer credit through the mail. It was a revolutionary concept that allowed working-class families to buy furniture, clothing, and home goods on installment plans. It was a financial innovation that democratized consumption. You no longer needed to be wealthy to furnish your home. You just needed a steady job and a catalog. The Spiegel Company didn't just sell products, it sold aspiration. From its massive warehouse complex on 35th Street, it shipped the American dream in cardboard boxes, helping to establish Chicago as the undisputed logistics and mail order capital of the world. While Spiegel was conquering the nation by mail, another family was conquering Chicago block by block. The Mandel brothers, Leon, Simon, and Emmanuel, were Bavarian immigrants who, like Spiegel, started small. In 1855, their first store opened on Clark Street. They endured not one, but two fires, including the Great Fire of 1871, which completely destroyed their business. Yet each time, they rebuilt, bigger and more ambitious than before. Reportedly at the urging of Marshall Field himself, they established a new flagship store on the corner of State and Madison, the corner that would soon become the epicenter of Chicago retail. Their masterstroke wasn't a single innovation, but a relentless pursuit of scale and elegance. The Mandel Brothers department store became a 9-story behemoth, a palace of retail that was a direct and fierce competitor to the legendary Marshall Fields. By the turn of the century, it employed over 3,000 people and was a city unto itself, with buyers in New York and Paris sending back the latest fashions. They didn't just build a store, they helped build that great street. State Street's reputation as one of the world's premier shopping districts was cemented by the bitter, glamorous rivalry between giants like Fields, Carson Pyrie Scott, and the tenacious Mandel brothers. The family was deeply embedded in Chicago's civic and Jewish communal life, but their most visible legacy is the magnificent white terracotta building that still stands at State and Madison. Though the store itself is gone, sold to a competitor in 1960, the building serves as a silent monument to three immigrant brothers who refused to be broken by disaster, and instead helped define the commercial heart of their new city. Chapter 2. The Titans of Thread and Leather. As the 20th century dawned, Chicago was transforming. It was no longer just a place of trade, it was a place of making. The air grew thick with the smoke of 1,000 factories, and a new generation of Jewish entrepreneurs moved from selling goods to manufacturing them on an industrial scale. They would clothe the nation and, in one remarkable case, changed the very relationship between capital and labor. If you wore a quality pair of men's shoes in the first half of the 20th century, there was a good chance they came from Chicago. That was thanks to Milton S. Florsheim. Founded in 1892, Florsheim Shoes was built on a simple but powerful premise: quality. In an era of mass-produced, often shoddy goods, Florsheim staked his name on durability and style. The company was one of the first to establish a national network of its own retail stores, controlling both manufacturing and the point of sale to ensure their standard of quality was met everywhere. Florsheim's masterstroke was brand building through relentless consistency. His factories in Chicago became models of efficiency, turning out millions of pairs of shoes that became synonymous with the burgeoning American middle class. He wasn't just building a shoe company, he was helping to build Chicago's reputation as a manufacturing powerhouse. The jobs created in his factories supported entire neighborhoods, and the wealth he generated helped set a new standard for philanthropy in the city. The Florsheim family became major supporters of both Jewish charities and broader civic institutions, laying a philanthropic framework that other industrial families would follow. The name Florsheim became more than just a brand. It represented a certain Chicago-made quality. But perhaps the most profound impact came from a company that made the suits Florsheim's customers wore. Hart, Schaffner and Marx was founded in 1872 by brothers Harry and Max Hart. They were soon joined by their brother-in-law, Marcus Marx, and a cousin, Joseph Schaffner. Their insight was to see the future in ready-to-wear clothing. At a time when men of means had their suits tailored, Hart, Schaffner, and Marx pioneered the idea of high-quality, mass-produced suits that could be sold across the country. Through aggressive national advertising, they created one of the first truly national clothing brands, making the HS&M label a symbol of style and reliability. Their business exploded, making them one of the largest clothing manufacturers in the world. But their true, historic masterstroke had nothing to do with fashion. It was about justice. In 1910, the garment industry in Chicago was a powder keg of low wages, brutal hours, and horrific working conditions. A spontaneous strike began when a handful of young women at a Hart, Schaffner, and Marx contractor walked out to protest a wage cut. The strike quickly swelled to over 40,000 workers, paralyzing the city's garment industry in a bitter, violent conflict. Instead of crushing the union, Joseph Schaffner did the unthinkable. He chose to negotiate. Working with progressive labor leaders, the company hammered out what became known as the Hart, Schaffner, and Marx Labor Agreement of 1911. This was one of the first collective bargaining agreements in American history and established a permanent board of arbitration to settle disputes. It was a revolutionary document that guaranteed workers' rights and fair wages. In an era defined by labor warfare, Hart, Schaffner, and Marx chose peace and partnership. This act didn't just save their company, it laid the groundwork for a more stable and humane industrial environment in Chicago, and led to the formation of the powerful Amalgamated Clothing Workers of America. Their legacy is twofold. They dressed America for success, but more importantly, they proved that a business could be both immensely profitable and profoundly decent. Chapter 3, Forging the Skyline, Defining the Soul. While some families built empires of commerce and industry, others shaped the very physical and intellectual form of the city. They were visionaries who understood that a great city needed more than just wealth. It needed a soul, a skyline, and institutions that would last for generations. You can't tell the story of Chicago architecture without saying the name Denkmal Adler. A German Jewish immigrant and a trained engineer who served in the Union Army, Adler was the unsung genius behind some of Chicago's most iconic buildings. He's best known for his partnership with the flamboyant Louis Sullivan. But while Sullivan was the artistic visionary, Adler was the master of engineering, acoustics, and the practical realities of construction. He was the man who made Sullivan's art possible. Adler's masterstroke was solving the single greatest problem facing Chicago architects. The city was built on mud. Chicago's soft, swampy clay soil couldn't support the weight of massive stone buildings. For the monumental auditorium building, completed in 1889, Adler devised an ingenious solution: a floating raft foundation. He created a massive mat of crisscrossing railroad ties and steel rails, all embedded in concrete, which distributed the building's immense weight over a huge area, allowing it to float on the clay. This innovation was a critical step that made the construction of skyscrapers in Chicago possible. He didn't just design buildings, he engineered the very ground beneath them. The auditorium building itself, a breathtaking complex with a hotel, offices, and a 4,200-seat theater renowned for its near-perfect acoustics, was Adler's triumph. His expertise was legendary, and his partnership with Sullivan produced a series of structures that defined the Chicago School of Architecture. Their firm also gave a young man named Frank Lloyd Wright his start. Adler's legacy isn't just in the stone and steel of buildings like the auditorium, it's in the DNA of every skyscraper that rises from Chicago's challenging soil. Generations later, another family would come to define Chicago's cultural and architectural landscape. The Pritzker family story begins with A.N. Pritzker, the son of a Ukrainian Jewish immigrant who arrived in Chicago in 1881. A.N. and his sons, Jay and Donald, built a colossal business empire. But their most famous creation came almost by accident. In 1957, Jay Pritzker was in a coffee shop near the Los Angeles airport and learned the nearby Hyatt House Motel was for sale. He bought it on the spot. This was the beginning of the Hyatt hotel chain. The family's masterstroke was to transform the hotel industry by making architecture a central part of the brand. In 1967, they opened the Hyatt Regency Atlanta, featuring a revolutionary 22-story atrium lobby. Initially dismissed by critics, it became a global sensation, turning the hotel lobby from a waiting area into a destination. While the Hyatt empire is global, the Pritzker family's philanthropic heart remained in Chicago. Their name is quite literally etched into the city's modern DNA. There is the Pritzker School of Medicine at the University of Chicago and the stunning J. Pritzker Pavilion in Millennium Park, which hosts free cultural events for hundreds of thousands of Chicagoans every year. And perhaps most enduringly, they created the Pritzker Architecture Prize in 1979, now regarded as the Nobel Prize of Architecture. While the early pioneers built the city's body, the Pritzkers have spent a lifetime enriching its soul. Chapter 4: The King of Concrete and Capital. In the world of influence, some names are spoken only in whispers. They are the families whose power is so vast and so deeply integrated into a city's machinery that it becomes like air, everywhere and invisible. For much of the 20th century in Chicago, that name was Crown. The story starts with Henry Crown, born Henry Krinsky in 1896 to a Lithuanian Jewish immigrant. His family was poor, and he left school after the 8th grade. In 1919, with a $10,000 loan, he and his brothers founded a company called Material Service Corporation. The business was as unglamorous as it gets. They sold sand, gravel, and lime, the basic ingredients of construction. Crown's masterstroke was the complete integration of the most fundamental industry in a growing city: building. He wasn't content to be a middleman. He began buying the pits, quarries, and mines that produced the materials. He bought the barges and trucks to transport them. Material Service Corporation soon became the single largest producer of building materials in the Midwest. His company's concrete, stone, and gravel were the literal building blocks of modern Chicago. Major projects like the Merchandise Mart and the Civic Opera House were built with his materials. When you look at the physical substance of Chicago, you are looking at the work of Henry Crown. But that was just the beginning. Crown was a financial genius, using the cash flow from his industrial empire to become a shrewd investor. His most famous deal came in 1951, when he led a syndicate that purchased the Empire State Building, selling it a decade later for a massive profit. In 1959, he merged Material Service Corporation with the defense giant General Dynamics, becoming its largest shareholder. Though he was briefly forced out in a boardroom battle, he quietly bought up stock until he regained control a few years later, demonstrating the tenacity that defined him. Henry Crown was the ultimate insider, a man whose influence stretched from the construction site to the highest levels of finance and politics. He preferred power to publicity. While other dynasties put their names on department stores, Crown owned the company that made the concrete for the foundations. His legacy is less visible, but far more fundamental. The Crown family remains one of the most powerful and philanthropic forces in Chicago today. Their name adorning major institutions at Northwestern University, the University of Chicago, and the Museum of Science and Industry. They represent the final evolution of power in Chicago, from the tangible world of retail to the abstract, all-encompassing world of pure capital. From the first mail-order catalogs to the steel beams of the first skyscrapers, the story of Chicago is inextricably linked with the ambition and ingenuity of these remarkable Jewish families. They arrived not as conquerors, but as strivers, peddlers, and dreamers. They saw in a muddy, chaotic frontier town a canvas on which to build. The Spiegels and Mandels transformed State Street into a retail mecca and taught America a new way to shop. The Florsheims and the founders of Hart, Schaffner, and Marx built industrial empires that clothed the nation and, in a moment of crisis, chose partnership over conflict. Dankmar Adler, the engineering genius, solved the riddle of Chicago's soft soil, allowing the city's architectural ambitions to soar. And in the modern era, families like the Pritzkers and the Crowns translated industrial wealth into an unparalleled legacy of cultural, intellectual, and civic philanthropy that continues to shape the city's soul. They were different from the city's other founding fathers. Often excluded from the established corridors of old money power, they built their own. Their influence wasn't always loud, but it was foundational. They did more than just get rich. They built the city's skeleton and gave it a soul. So the next time you look at that iconic skyline, remember the story written in concrete, steel, and quiet ambition by the families who helped build Chicago. The story of Chicago's builders doesn't end here. Many other families, entrepreneurs, and visionaries played a crucial role in shaping this great American city. Who should we cover next? Are there other hidden histories you want us to uncover? Let us know in the comments below. And if you want to keep digging into the secret stories that built our world, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next investigation.